Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Sons and Daughters of Liberty. Tonight's topic is going to be, do we still live in a caste system? It could be a little something different for you guys. A few things I want to point out and discuss. Let me share a couple links here and we'll get started. All right. I've heard a lot the past 3 or 4 weeks, the past few months, there's been a lot of talk about social class, the labels. For those that tuned into my channel, I did talk a lot about labels and how we categorize ourselves. Alt-left, alt-right, alt-light, Democrat, Republican. And I've been hearing, nationalists, tribes, race. So I thought it was time to revisit something that is very old throughout history. But yet, you can see this throughout history, even to the present day. So do we still live in a caste system? Well, I think I'm going to say we do, but that's for you to decide. Hopefully, after I show you guys some things, explain some things to you, you might see the world a little bit differently. Especially with a lot of stuff that's going on right now, with, talk about low sperm counts among white males, different cultures. In a sense, it is a form of a caste system that's playing out before you. It might not be, like I said, we change names of things. We don't call it a caste system. We call it a democracy now. Or we call it a monarchy. We've changed it, the term of it throughout the centuries. Most people point to the most common one that they relate to, and it's a debate which one's older. They point to the Hindu caste system of India. Well, I'm more familiar with the Egyptian caste system, which the argument goes back and forth between scholars and archaeologists which caste systems was first. And there's the argument of, was it the pharaoh that ran things or the priest caste that ran things? But even today, let's look at here in the U.S. We have a class. It's based on rich, or we can just say elite, super rich, elite, wealthy, rich, middle class, which they break down to upper and lower middle class. It used to be just 3 categories: rich, middle class, and poor. Now they keep breaking these things down farther. Well, the middle class is considered the working class. Then you have the poor, which is also broke down to underclass, homeless, and we keep adding things to the terminology of things. We keep giving new labels to old ideologies. And every time, it's like taking a word. Every time we retranslate a word, it loses its meaning. It loses its definition. We live in a day and age where with the English language has become so universal with texting and stuff. Our framework of words are changing constantly. We're going more to an anagram or language. OMG, oh my God, or WTF, you know what that means? I don't need to say it. Like I said, I'm trying to keep the cuss words out of the stream as much as possible. So there's a unwritten history here. You know, even we can look. I can go as far as looking at our military, the way we use our rank system in the military. It is a form of a caste system. We've never gotten away from the ideology and belief system of a caste system. It's just seen throughout culture, even in native Indians or the Mayan Indians, the Incas, the tribesmen, the Aborigines. They have a caste system. They don't call it a caste system. You know, they have their leader, they have their shamans, they have their hunters and their warriors. You know, I think some of this got me rethinking about it. Some of the people I've been researching of late, that's been, you know, I say they're infiltrating these groups of the alt-right and stuff. I mean, we've got people that are pushing a nationalist ideology or neo-Nazi ideology that are Jews. I mean, what the hell? So I would have never ever thought about that. I mean, after the atrocities that Hitler had done, you'd never think we'd want to ever repeat that style of history. You know, but yet I've come to find one of the speakers in two of these rallies that are coming up. He's a Jew. He was a senator. He's written papers on eugenics. And it just amazed me. But he's, you know, trying to change the ideology of the alt-right movement. You know, which if you start breaking down these categories, they're a form of caste systems in themselves. Because now you could class them as more tribal. But for those who are new to this terminology, let me pull up a diagram here for you. Like I said, I'm more familiar. My studies are more on the Egyptian. I know the Hindu has one that's almost very similar. But every culture has one. Every culture has been led and designed off a caste system. So in the Egyptian caste system, it started out with the pharaoh, viziers, and high priest, the royal overseers, the scribes, the artisans, then the farmers and laborers, and underneath that would have been the slave class. This is how most cultures, even to your tribal cultures, tribal people, this is how you can find these forms of caste systems in them. You know, for most, I think if we wanted to get more modern and understand it more, which we will here in a little bit, we'd have to look at the monarchy, which is some interesting things in that to point out. But for those that are not quite understanding the caste system, the Portuguese described these groups as caste, meaning pure. The groups are like different races. It was also a way to separate the races. I'm not going to get too much in the biblical sense of it, but we can even see it in the biblical times for your Christians. But for the Christian churches, let's look at it. do you not have a pastor? Then from a pastor, you have your deacons. And it's been a long time, so I can't remember all. But then you have your, the one that leads the choir. Then you have different steps in the congregation till you get to that part. But even if, like I said, even our churches have a form of a caste system built into it. Actually, I think I have a diagram. I could almost point that out. Much like your monarchies. Depending on the time frame of your monarchy, the earlier monarchy, it was, your kings and queens and your nobles, then your knights, your vassals, your merchants, farmers, craftsmen, then your peasants and serfs. Then when the churches got more involved, you had the church, which the crown in most cases took its leadership and direction from the churches, from the Pope at that time, which is where you get this diagram from. Previous to this diagram, it would have been the monarchs, the kings and queens, the nobles, the knights, the vassals, the merchants, farmers, and craftsmen. As you can see, you also start seeing the social structures. Your rich being your nobles, your monarchs being your elites, or your kings and queens. We can look at the Catholic Church, and it's a huge breakdown. You got Pope, cardinals, bishops, deacons, priests, monks. It's a huge form of a system. But like I said, I don't really want to get too much into the religion side of it. I want to stick to more culture, political, even ideology and labeling. Because when we start creating labels, we are creating a form of caste system, whether you realize it or not. Because within those ideologies of labels, they have leadership, and they delegate proportionately jobs. You'll have the leader that you'll nominate to be the spokesman or to be elected into office. Then under that person, you'll have a chairman. Then you'll have your speakers. I don't think people realize when you start putting yourself into a label, you're putting yourself into a form of caste system. And we've always talked about this. We've said it for years. The caste system is the worst system ever. It's what destroys countries over time. It's what's destroyed empires over time. It is a form of control, controlling not so much the nobles. It's controlling the lower class, the peasants, the serfs, the everyday common person. I posed this question to somebody, and they kind of took it somewhere else, but, they hit on some good points, and I agree with their ideology. You take it as an end of classification of race. There is a caste system even within races. It is usually the majority sets and dominates over the minority. They push their views, their culture aspects onto the minority. Where, it's a little bit, it's treading a fine line in that ideology of thinking. Because most people don't see it play out like that. until you start having atrocities happen, like what Hitler did. Then you start seeing how he classified race as a weapon, as a form of a caste system, putting one race above the other. You know, most of you guys know, I'm against anything racial. You know, I believe in what our Constitution says, equality. But there's also parts of me I realize as a white male that there's a need to preach awareness to other white males and other white females that we need to start reprocreating, having more kids, because we are diminishing. We're starting to become a minority. And I'm going to tie this all into this caste system thing, because in a sense we're playing on a stage where our elites, they even have their own form of caste system. So when we talk about our monarchs, our presidents, our governors, our leaders, they're taking orders from someone else, or they're being swayed to take orders through their congressional powers from the label that they represent themselves, whether it be Republican, Democrat, Independent, or the corporate identities that pour money into these campaigns. So there is a caste system even within inside the business. I mean, that can be quite apparent when you start looking at unions and stuff, or you look at how big businesses are run. There's a form of caste system even in that. How, you know, when you start out the bottom of the totem pole, so to speak. You know, most people, when they hear the word caste system, they think of it as a birthright. And 9 times out of 10, it's still pretty much well accurate. If you're born into a poor class, maybe 1% will achieve excellence and break free from the poor and become middle and eventually work their way up. The system's set up so it doesn't happen. So the percentage is low. It's probably higher than 1%, I'd hope. But realistically, it's probably about 1%, just like, you know, only 1% are the elites. Actually, I have a diagram of that. You know, 1% is your upper class, that's not even accurate. You know, I say that's more. Your upper class probably ranges more to 5%, 8%, because now we have a higher form of a system ideology than the upper class. Our 1% are multi-billionaires. You know, we class them as elites. You know, but even if you look at the level of education, prestigious universities, occupation executives, business owners, heirs, you know, upper middle class really doesn't exist anymore. That's pretty much all just broke back down to middle class now. You know, college or high school educated. You know, professionals, lower executives, managers, supervisors, and you have your working class, which is still falls into the middle class. Now you can start seeing, in a sense, you start looking at this, it goes back to the other chart I showed you. That'll work. You know, merchants, farmers, and craftsmen. Our classes are exactly that, merchants, farmers, and craftsmen. Our working class is what supports the country. It's what puts money into the rich and elites. Only the top executives, but they're still making money off the laborers inside their corporations. They're not doing the real work. They're just sitting there growing fat off your labor. This is the way the caste systems have always worked. I know we're in the 21st century. It's 2018 going on 20, soon to be 2020. You think by now we would have completely separated ourselves from this ideology of caste systems. But yet we can see its ugly head rear up in everything, from business to government. Look at our government structure, how it was structured. I mean, our president doesn't have full authority over everything. He can't, there is checks and balances put in place. But he still has a lot of power. He can do a lot of stuff, whether for the good or for the harm of the nation. It's still a based caste system. You have a president, and under him you have your branches of government, executives, and the list goes on and on. And if you look inside of each of the branches, you have what? Another form of caste systems within those branches. You have Republicans, Democrats, Independents. And the list goes on. Conservatives, liberals, all with their own agenda, their own ideologies. When you start adding more labels, like I said, you start changing the definition of things. You start changing the operation of things. And in this case, it hasn't been for the good because it's divided the people. But in their eyes, here's how I look at our government. I look at it no much more than this picture right here, minus the top part. But yet that part fits in because we also use that in how we vote people in. In the United States, Christianity is still the main religion. Even with religion, much as I hate to say this, we find a caste system within the religions. You have Catholicism, the many branches of Christianity, Catholicism, Baptist, Pentecostal, even, I couldn't even list them all. Mennonites, the list goes on and on. Mormon, Jehovah's Witness, and a lot of people vote on those lines as well. So now you can see all the different ideologies that come into play. And they're still just a form of a caste system. Because in the end, all we are doing is answering to nobility. That's the way they act. Look at them. Do they represent you? Have any of them really kept any of the promises they run on? Very few. They look upon us as we're the peasants, we're the serfs. And they look upon themselves as they're the rich. They're the nobility. We're beneath them. It's supposed to be set up that, no, they're supposed to be answerable to us. But yet, I don't see any of them been removed from office yet. So they're really not answerable to us because we have to wait. Unless you happen to live in 7 states where you can actually do a recall election, we have to wait to the next re-election cycle for them before we can voice our opinions. And for real, and you guys want to know the true reason to crack down on the internet, crack down on censorship, crack down on your freedom of speech is because of what Trump did. Trump used social media. Social media was so used in this election that it changed the process of the elections forever. Now they're doing the nobles. These elected officials that don't want to lose their power, doesn't want the people to have that power to control them, because it's a caste system ideology. We control the peasants and the serfs. We give them that false illusion of they have control. And we proved that we actually did this time around. And they feared that. So now what they've done is now they're going after every group. Anybody that talks differently or talks in an ideology that could spur a moment, they're finding a way to silence, whether it's infiltrating people into those groups and causing divisions inside the groups, as we've seen in every group, including here on this beautiful platform of YouTube with the truther community. It's gotten divided just by infiltrating a few people in. They want to quiet them. That's why we're seeing a big deal here of late of sources, factual sources, real sources. What's real, what's fake. They want it to be a spotlight. So when you come across something on social media, it'll be you'll question it now. I mean, look how many sites have been created that, citizen journalists that, are reporting accurate stuff. But then you find one where they misrepresented themselves or didn't report something, or the source was found to be wrong, and they don't retract it, or they just delete it and don't say why. They don't own up to, we made a mistake. So then we start questioning every time we see something on social media. That's the goal here, guys. Understand this. They want us to mistrust everything we see on social media, which, honestly, I think it's kind of a good thing in a way, because we've forgotten how to question things. We should be questioning everything we see and hear anyway. We should be fact-checking everything we take in to know that we're getting the right answers, to know that, okay, never trust anything. Don't trust anything I say. I could be wrong. Fact check me. Check. I'm not scared to admit when I'm wrong. I've been quite wrong many times in my life. That's part of being human. But if you look at our politicians there, and the rich, even Hollywood, they consider themselves of a higher standard. We see this even when celebrities, they commit crimes. Where we'd normally go to jail, they get a slap on the wrist. The Middle Ages, under the monarchies, the nobles, they would get slapped or slap on the wrist for infractions, or sometimes they wouldn't even get punished at all. It would be somebody else that got blamed would end up getting punished for a misdeed. Much like in the military, the term, the shit rolls downhill. That comes from a caste system. Heads are going to roll. It's nothing to do with the top heads. Their heads aren't going to be the ones to roll unless, a revolution happens. It doesn't happen. Once in a few centuries will it ever happen. We actually can't say that because we just watched it kind of happen in Venezuela. So it does happen from time to time. Why do those things happen? Same reason every great empire has fallen. They get too big for the britches. They get that God complex. We're better than the people beneath us. People beneath us have to obey. So they get stricter. They crack down. They make them work harder for less. or give them that false illusion, we'll give you a raise. We'll increase your pay. By doing so, they just increase your tax bracket. So now they're taking more taxes and you're still making less. The game hasn't changed, guys. This has been happening since the beginning of any form of government. It's a tribal culture thing. It is a leader, your priest caste, warrior caste. It's a simple 3-caste system, 4-caste system. Then the workmen are always really no different than slaves, except they just have a little bit more freedom than us slaves. You know, just like people, okay, they're the masters, we're the servants. Well, no, because there's different ideologies in that. One can be an alpha and yet have beta qualities. It doesn't make him a beta or her a beta. They're still very much alpha. It's a respect. It's treating the person that you're working with, talking with, as if they were your equal. It has nothing to do with being a beta or becoming a beta. You're still an alpha. You're even more an alpha because you have the knowledge and the understanding that I can only work at the speed of this person. I can only, if I talk in an alpha tone, I'm not going to get the best qualities out of this person. I'm going to get the best work or the best ideas. We allow things to get so twisted. And it doesn't help when you have all these different movements, labels. I'm just going to call them labels. That's what they are. They're just stupid labels that we want to categorize ourselves in. We're tired of the system that we're in, so we don't find a system that has some of the ideas and values that we think will appease to us in a work. Truth is, you're just going from one caste system into another. I don't know, it's hard to explain when, they don't even teach caste systems anymore in school. So most people, it's a lost ideology, it's a lost philosophy, but yet we live it every day. In some form, some way. We always see a generation try to break away from the caste system. And it tries to oppose it, which tells us something. It tells us there's something not right. There's something broken. Why do we keep falling into these caste systems? Like I said, every great empire has fallen because of a caste system. I mean, we still say Europe is a monarchy. Still has a monarchy. Now it has a figure. The ideal and sense of the monarchy has died. I mean, what does the queen rule? Nothing but name and prestige. Parliament now does the ruling. So the monarch has become more of a figurehead. Some could say even the President of the United States has become more of a figurehead, in a sense, in the same sense. Because he can still, if he vetoes something, it can go right back to Congress, and Congress can get 2/3 majority vote, can pass it anyway. So therefore, the president doesn't have full control. That was meant so we wouldn't have dictatorship. But now that process has been abused. and it's been abused for years. In the beginning, it was a great fundamental idea. We've made a few mistakes down the way. The mistakes was we never implemented term limits. We have allowed it to be more of a rich, only the rich can afford to run. Uh-oh. I'm not sure why it stopped sharing. I can't share this again. I guess Hangouts is acting up. Wouldn't be the first time. And that's what, maybe we need to re-educate ourselves on what a caste system is. Maybe if we relook at the caste systems of old and why these great empires fell. And they fell because it was the corruption within the Senate or a dictator taking over, that they only cared more about lining their pockets than the well-being of the workers. So it got to a point where the workers had enough. They revolted, they rebelled. The greed got so much, and the power struggles got so much that, it was senators taking out senators. Which still happens to this day, guys. You create a scandal, and that scandal can ruin a politician's career in the eyes of the people, whether it be true, factual, or not. Media has learned through the years, media is not much in. Remember the court bards, the court jesters? That's what our media has become. They can actually politically assassinate someone and never lay a hand on, just by word, creating a story. This was even part of the caste system. Inside your courts, you had your nobles, your court jesters, which turned out were, the system we can find throughout any form of society. We haven't learned the mistakes from these things. Truly believe we can ever live without some type of form of a caste system? I don't think so. I think it's kind of ingrained in our DNA to have a form of a caste system. When more people start rebelling, that's when we see that the caste system has been being misused. But then again, it also could be argued that we see this happening in every society, so therefore maybe it's not ingrained in our DNA. Maybe it's ingrained that we learn to live without a caste system. But how do you do that? Can we live in a system without checks and balances, without government, laws? I mean, I said the Wild Wild West was the closest thing. But yet there were still laws. The community created the laws. So do we start breaking communities into like a tribe? I mean, let's look at a state. A state isn't a whole state. It's made up of counties. Each county has its own little towns, cities, and some cities become the county itself. But a lot of these counties have more than one city inside them, small cities, small communities. They have their laws and governments. Yes, you have your state structure, your state laws that govern the law of the land of that state. But then you have lower forms of government in these counties that dictate their own laws to the land. So essentially, we're still living in a monarchy type system, caste system, if you think about it. Our counties become our lords, our barons. The law enforcement of those counties are your knights. And we could say the doctors, the emergency crews, we'll just class them as the priest caste. Because their job's to heal, rescue, and save, and protect lives. But they all answer to their lords. Nobility used to be things you could look at as a person's surname. Their surname and their crest. Their crest would tell you what their stature in the nobility was. Does not our states have crests? It's a good question, isn't it? It does. Every state has its crest that represents that state. For those that travel, who go out in the country and travel, remember seeing barns and stuff? You'll see a logo painted on a barn. That was the crest of that farmer and that family. A lot of them, you'll come to learn, was more Germanic. A lot of the farming on barns, the logo on the barns, the little crest on the barns, what it was crest. It represented the house or the family. We've still not gotten away from a caste system. It's followed us, and it's followed every culture. I mean, like I said, I even talked about a little bit about Native Americans. The Native Americans had their own, in a way, caste system. You had the chief, the leader, the elder. Under him, you had the shaman, or the witch doctor, or whatever you want to call them, which was the priests. Under them, you had your warriors. And yes, I'm trying to avoid the obvious here. Gender played a role in the caste systems as well. In the warrior class, unless it was an Amazonian warrior class, which was female, most warrior classes only consisted of males. Like you'll see a lot of more of your priest caste and your native tribals was a mixture of female, and actually more female than male. And a lot of cultures. Not all, a lot. I'd say almost the majority. Probably wrong there, but. Then you had the people that worked the land, the ones that couldn't fight. And a lot of the people that worked the land were actually women and children, because they weren't old enough or strong enough to enter the warrior caste, or they didn't have the knowledge and wisdom to become part of the priest caste. And they didn't have the years and wisdom and age to become the elder, the chief. But even the tribal communities had their own form of caste systems. Everybody played a part. But yet, if we look at more on a tribal nature and level, we see less, at least as far as in written history, and from some of the stuff that's been passed down. Because remember, a lot of these cultures didn't pass down their tradition via writing. They passed it down from ancestor to ancestor by sitting and talking, teaching them of their history by mouth, by word, by imagery. But we didn't see the corruption that we see with the other forms of caste systems. Once it left its tribal nature, it became something different. It became I would say, monstrosity in a sense, because it became power. It became a greed-based. It no longer functioned as a cohesiveness, because now we're adapting, we're evolving. We kept the ideology of a caste system. As I pointed out, we still have it to this day. Every form of government is a form of caste system. Every label that is as a political label is a form of caste system, even to our military, with our ranks, general, 5-star general, 4-star general, 3-star general, 2-star, 1-star. Then you go various organizations list all the way down to private. Still based on a form of caste system. Ranking system, as the, anybody watched the Da Vinci Code, is when they were talking about the shape for the triangle, the bars, stars, or the points on a person's arm showed how big his rank. Being nice and not trying to cuss. Pissing contest, who has the biggest? But the funny thing is, let's talk about the slave class, because it was a class. They even had their own little form of caste system, because you had the head slave who would tend to the others, who would be in charge of the others. Weird, isn't it, thinking of those terms, but it was even in that type. Even they fell to a certain form of caste system, even though they were all slaves. They still took orders from another slave that was placed in a higher position above them. Why do we do that? Why did they do that? If they worked, if they could prove their work, prove their loyalty, that there was a chance, a hope of rising up with even inside that caste. Sick, isn't it? But the psychological game continued even in that type of form. It is weird, the whole caste system. It's weird to even think that we could be talking about it today and still find its ugly head in almost every form of our culture. Clear from our government. The best way to look at it now is look at the old monarchies. Like I said, I take mine clear from the Egyptian side. The other form, which is just as old, like I said, we can argue back and forth which one's older, we don't know. The Hindu, the Indian culture in India is based on a caste system. Now, but hey, let's jump up to present day a little bit. Touch a little bit on religion again. Look at Islam, Muslims. They have a form of caste system as well. Except for theirs is the priest caste system. Their imam is their leader instead of the... It goes back to the original diagram I was showing you with the Pope Church. Same thing. Except for it's not a Pope, it's an imam. And they're divided into sects, which is nothing more than tribes. Each with the same ideology of a caste system. They might have different philosophies and ideologies and beliefs. They still run a form of caste system. So maybe we should be looking on that side of it, which is a more modern day example of a caste system at play. Because most people never grasp and understand that here in the United States, our government is a caste system. Our business corporations is a caste system. Our labels that we call ourselves is a form of caste system. Clear down to our churches we go to are caste systems. So how do we change this ideology? How do we break this cycle? How do we stop from having what history has shown us will happen when these caste systems continue to oppress and trodden the common people, the everyday people? When we get tired of the corruption, tired of the lies, the deceptions, tired of working 2 jobs, 40 hours, 80 hours, might as well say, a week, and still not getting by. Well, let's raise the minimum wage. Well, I did a documentary on that already, or a video on that, not a documentary. Sure, we'll raise the minimum wage. There's no laws in place to stop the businesses from raising the prices to match the increase. Yes, they have a right to earn more money and make more money, but they don't stop at, oh, we'll just raise the price of that milk 50 cents, $1.50. They're still making money. And we're making money because they didn't raise it to match the increase. They took a small 2% increase, and we got to keep our 98% increase of our pay. There's no laws that stop them from doing that. Until that happens, raising the minimum wage don't mean jack. Oh wait, yes it does. It means something. It means you're going to make less. A lot less. Less than what you're making now. Why? Because, well, you just jumped the tax bracket, so they're taking more taxes. That gallon of milk that you're paying, what, $3.75 for, is now $7.75? Which, well, actuality, you're still paying $3.75, but because they raised the minimum wage to $15, it is now $7.75. Now you know what the real joke about it is? Now you can't even afford that gallon of milk. Why? Because now the taxes are taking more, so you're making less. So you can barely afford that gallon of milk that just got jacked to match your pay increase. It's actually quite common sense when you think about it. Only the rich keeps getting richer, and the poor keeps getting poorer, and the middle class keeps shrinking. Huh, funny, where's that? Has history showed us that happened somewhere before? You know, just like I said, there's even double standards to the laws. A person that's rich enough will get slapped on the wrist compared to somebody like us. They make a mockery of the justice system while we pay the full price for minor infractions. Instead of that probation, we go to jail, where they would get probation. There's a double standard. And that begins the collapse of the caste system. That's where it's always begun. It causes an oppression to the people. When only 1% can rise up from being poor to become middle class, then 1% of the middle class can rise up to become rich. There's no growth. In fact, the numbers are even worse than I'm stating, because our middle class has shrunk. As I showed you in that diagram, it used to be upper middle class, working middle class. Now we're just down to middle class, and we're borderlining on poor. But yet the rich are getting richer. They're going from rich to, the rich are the ones increasing in class, when it should be the middle class increasing in class. Or not even increasing, it should be the middle class becoming rich and the poor becoming middle class. So yes, we very much live in a caste system. A caste system that is crumbling beneath our feet, and we're watching it unfold now. But instead of just one empire falling, we're watching multiple empires falling. Multiple world governments are falling. And there's plenty of blame to go around for that one. That's why they're pushing allowing refugees to flood into the country. That's why they're pushing culture change. If they can push enough diversity into a culture, they can change the culture, change the ideology, and bring about a new form of caste system. By doing so, they'll change it. And in a sense, it's backwards thinking. They're hoping by doing this, they can save the old caste system. Save the way it is. But cultures that will not integrate. We're dealing with generations being taught more birth control type measures, not to populate, not to procreate. Wait to your later years, which is causing a diminishing effect into every culture, except for the cultures that just breed, that aren't taught that ideology. I've only seen one culture with laws in place succeed in that type of ideology, and that's China. I don't know why. I mean, there's laws in place in China. You can't have no more than one kid because overpopulation of the country. But yet what do? They allow them to, here, go to this country. Happens. Past 3 years, we've heard about stories of boatloads of Chinese coming into the United States. Pregnant women. Well, we know our immigration laws and how they are. If you're born on our U.S. soil, that's why our immigration has to change. Laws have to change in our immigration. That's not being racist. That's just being realistic. I mean, I could go on forever on this topic. There's a reason why, even within our states, why we see like blacks, the communities that they live in, why there's no good education, why there's no real jobs in those areas. They don't want them to grow. They want them to be what they are. So only the best, the strongest survive, educate themselves to pull them out. They become the 1% that comes out of that class. And it's just not here, guys. See, I had the privilege of actually going to school in Brazil. And I'll tell you this. Somebody says, you know, South American people, their IQs are low. Don't blame it on the people. Because that few little statistic is only mirrored by the poor. The ones that can only go to public school. And it's not mandatory for any child in Brazil to go to school. They did anyway. The education in the public school is not existent. But for the upper class, you go to private schools. You go to either a preschool or the Catholic school. And your education in those schools is twice as higher education than here in the United States. Actually, 3 times. I would have graduated 3 years ahead of my class if I stayed in Brazil and stayed in the private Catholic school. And been in college before I was 18. I'd been in college at the age of 16. What they do is the ones that go to the priest and Catholic schools in South America, they become your doctors, your lawyers, your dentists, your politicians, your business, your architects. But it's only the upper class. Like I said, you go to a public school, you're not learning shit there. You're barely learning how to read and write. But we're seeing that now happen here in the United States. Thank you, Pam. It's just the ideal. Different cultures have different ways of doing things. We still see forms of caste systems. How do we break the caste system? How do we change that mechanism that's broken? Because we're starting to see the falls of empires. I use empires because the classic example is Rome, the greatest, probably one of the greatest empires. Fell because of the corruption in the Senate, the corruption, the greed. All of our monarchies, most of them fell because of the same thing, the infighting, the power struggle. We're living in a day and age where it's even more dangerous because now the media plays its part. The media can become the assassins, and they don't have to kill. They kill with words, false information. That's why we've seen things happen the way they've happened. We've seen such a chaos and division because we had a president that broke all the laws, broke all the rules that the caste system had. They've been running things smoothly. He took advantage of the number one tool out there that you're sitting in front of right now listening to me talk. He played on the social media. You know, I've been going to be doing a video, moves and counter moves. It's a fun little game that's playing out, much like the game of the caste system. It is a game to them. Unfortunately, we're the losers in the game every time. We can't make headway because it's designed for only the 1%, the creme de creme to climb up. That's the only ones they're interested in. Then they'll push their ideology, their philosophy. They will brainwash them, manipulate them, and teach them their ways. You know, everybody screams, oh, it's the elites. Who are the elites? Do you know? I know I don't. You know, just like I talk about secrets, when I've talked about secret societies. What's the biggest secret of a secret society? I'll tell you what, don't quote me Fight Club, please. So you can get that answer more than every time. The true meaning of a secret society is not the secret. The secret is I'm going to put figureheads and let you see my figureheads. You're never going to see me. You're never going to see the real society. You're just going to see the facade, the masquerade, the illusion. I want you to focus on that. While all your attention's on that, we'll be way over here doing our own little thing. That's the true meaning of a secret society. All the ones you see are just nothing but puppets. They're just a pretty face to be shown. What do you think in business the terminology is always sex sells? You put a pretty face, no matter if it's male or female, it's going to draw all the attention away. It's going to make you interested, intrigued. Exactly, fam. It is just a really big show. It is smoke and mirrors. That's why people get caught up in the Bloomberg thing. Every time Bloomberg comes around, or not Bloomberg, Bilderberg. It's just smoke and mirrors. Those guys don't do anything. It's a paid vacation for them to have fun. They don't make the policies, guys. They don't make, it's an illusion. You know, this is like I've pointed out with some secret societies. Some secret societies started out just like every good cause out there, whether it be alt-right, alt-left, alt-light, whatever you want to call it. The theoretical side of it, the philosophy, the ideology of it, sounds great on paper. And it might start a movement out that's great. But you'll have people slowly infiltrate it and slowly change the ideology of it, change the philosophy of it. In a sense, they silence the real good parts as time goes on. We've seen that played out in front of our eyes in the last 2 years. We've seen groups that were really good groups that stood for something, that stood for equality, stood for rights and liberties. We've seen those voices and those groups, the meanings of those groups, be silenced. To now it's a new ideology, a new philosophy that's being taught. Well, it starts with our education system. The histories aren't being taught. These movements, like the civil rights movement, that's not being taught anymore in the schools. So that history is no longer there. So now people hear things and they're like, it's like picking on what's trending. When something's trending, everybody thinks, okay, that's really happening. That's real. It's important news. Not so much. I actually agree with you, Pam. Everything's infiltrated. Everything has been infiltrated. The infiltration has been happening for a very long time. You know, damn it. I didn't want to go here, but I'm going to go here anyway. Let's look at the infiltration that's happening right now. I've already mentioned this form of caste system anyway, so it's probably the most modern form we can use for an example. Michigan, for the governor race this year, we have an imam, a Muslim, that is running for governor of Michigan. There's a couple that's running for seats, and state seats and positions in California. Nobody's talking about it. Nobody's questioning it. Why? Well, we know why. But what most people don't know, this infiltration Didn't start with all these refugees coming in. This started back when 9/11 happened. I've done a video on it. I've got people that's willing to come forward right now and talk about it at their own risk. It started actually with infiltrations in our prison systems, radicalizing whites, blacks, Hispanics, Asians inside the prison system. They would pick what they considered the weakest, take them under what they say their wing. Yeah, exactly. They don't care about us. They never have. It's all about them and how to raise their status, how to raise their nobility. Yes, Muslim Brotherhood in the system. And it amazed me hearing some of these people talk about this, what they witnessed, how easy it was for them to radicalize these people. And these are the ones that were in there on petty stuff that shouldn't have been in prison to begin with. The ones that would go out and never come back. Ones that would easily blend into society. I've watched it because, back then they weren't smart enough to tell them not to put tats on their body. Because anybody that's worked in a tat parlor or has worked with tattoo ink knows the difference between prison inks and street ink. Prison ink will always be solid black. It will not have no blue pigment in it. It won't fade. And I don't know how many of these groups, after that was pointed out to me and shown to me, that I've been able to spot tattoo markings that didn't have the bluish pigment in it. But nobody wants to pick that story up, so, which I don't blame them. Who wants to admit that our system was flawed, even in its lowest levels? I mean, we see the Muslim Brotherhood even in Congress now. There's members of it in Congress that are congressmen. So we're seeing another culture coming in that's not about to integrate. They want to assimilate. Yeah. Most people don't know that about tattoos. How they make tattoos in prison? They use baby oil and they burn it. And they collect what's called, I think it's called soot, on a can. Then they take that soot and add a little rubbing alcohol, and it creates the black pigment ink. Or they use Vaseline. So we end up with a system that has no checks and balances for we call integration, they call assimilation. That's something that's bothered me this whole time. We hear this word being used a lot, assimilate. Let me tell you something about words that get used a lot. Remember when it was trans this, trans that, just kept on popping up in the media? There's a reason for it. The more the word gets used, the more it gets publicized, it dulls us down to it. So when we hear it, transgender, transhuman, which is coming next, trust me. we don't focus on it as much as we should because it's been thrown around a lot. Assimilation is being thrown around a lot. Assimilate. I think for many people, the first time they ever heard the word assimilate or assimilation was stupid Star Trek. Well, I'm not going to say stupid. I like Star Trek, but I'm a Star Wars fan. I prefer Star Wars over Star Trek. That's beside the point. The board. You know, the infamous saying, resistance is futile. Futile, you will assimilate or be assimilated. Yes, New English class. Verbs, pronouns, adjectives. To integrate is to willingly integrate into a system or a society, to take on that culture or that society's beliefs, aspects. To assimilate is to take that culture and force them to adapt to yours. Not to, how do I put this? They want you to integrate into their system. Their system is the only way. It's pretty sad that we can use a Star Trek phrase. In their eyes, resistance is futile. You will either assimilate or you will be decimated. There is no in between. They don't care about our culture. In fact, they despise our culture. They despise everything we believe in. Why? Because we believe everyone has the right to freedom, liberty, equal justice, equal rights. And yes, sometimes we allow it to go way too far. But I'm a firm believer the Constitution is black and white. Oh yeah, don't get me started on Dearborn, Michigan. I don't live far from there. Well, I live just under 2 hours from Dearborn. I live in Ohio, all the way in the northwestern corner. I'm about 10 minutes from the Indiana line and about 5 minutes from the Michigan line. And Dearborn's too close to home for me, and that's about a 2-hour drive. Because a lot of that's starting to spill over here in Ohio, but then again, also where I live, quiet as it's kept, we have one of the biggest communities of Muslims in Ohio, just outside of Toledo. And actually, in one of my prepping videos, I did about why I had to change my bug out routes. I've actually pointed out and showed, just by using Google Maps, how these mosques are popping up and around the Appalachian Trails, along areas that are, you wouldn't normally think about it, but you think about culture, and we can go back to the German and Irish cultures, how they more migrated to the Appalachians area, the mountains area, because that land was more, reminded them of home. The climate was more like it was where they came from. That's why they migrated there. So it makes sense why we're starting to see a lot of these mosques being built in these areas. I mean, but if we see it, I mean, I can go and let's talk Minnesota. I mean, damn. Of course, you know, anytime they do something, they don't want to make a deal about it. But when somebody throws an explosive device inside a mosque, they want to make a big deal and go on a manhunt for whoever did it. Which I'm actually shocked that I didn't being talked about, since that just happened like yesterday or today. they're forcing they're forcing us to choose. Just like I don't like when people start talking about, oh, we're on the brink of a civil war. Last thing any of us ever want to see in any lifetime. They do. Many of them do. I did a video a couple of weeks ago on Islamabad, New York. Yes, that's the name of this town they created. It's basically 70 plus acres in New York that the feds just raided probably about a month ago, raided. And yeah, interesting, to say the least, which is why I've got a big issue with sanctuary cities. Because New York is a sanctuary city, and guess what? They were harboring terrorists. Because one of the people that they arrested was a very well-known terrorist. That's the part, I don't think people are, that's the problem. They want us divided. They want us arguing these stupid little things about race, culture, politics mainly, because it keeps us distracted. It keeps us not paying attention to what's really going on right in our own backyards. If we're going to argue if, I don't know, people keep trying to label me as what different things. I'm not a liberal. I'm not alt. I don't believe in labels. The only thing I believe in, the Constitution. The Constitution is the law of the land. And yes, I believe firmly in what it states, which gets me in trouble with every group. Because I will defend an aspect, except for one here late. I will not defend a group of people that will not integrate. You want to push your views, your beliefs, your ideologies, your ways of life, and you say that's the only way it can be, you don't belong here. This country was not founded on that. This country was founded on those very principles of liberty, freedoms, our rights, that is being abused at every state level. Not just state, but federal and government level. We are seeing a caste system, not a democracy. Yeah, I have to. But those that actually know me, it don't bother me because, hey, it is what it is. I'm not going to not be your friend because of it. But if you choose that, so be it. Maybe later down the road you'll see things differently and we'll talk again. Or maybe you'll just forget we had their differences and we'll talk. I try not to judge people that way. I wish more people had that way of thinking, because if you're going to judge me by my actions and deeds, how I represent myself every day. Yes, my views and opinions might change as I learn and grow become wiser. They should. Don't judge me because they changed, or don't judge me because I believe everybody should have the right to believe and follow what religion they want. I'm not going to judge you based on your religion. As long as you respect mine and everybody else is the same way. Because to me, I'm just like race. If you live in America, you're an American. You're not black, you're not white, you're not Asian, Hispanic, you're an American. Your skin color doesn't tell me anything. You live in this country. You're a citizen of this country. You're an American. I hate labels for that reason. Labels divide. But, same token, that makes me a hypocrite because I just said American. But yet I know plenty of people here on visas that go to our schools that follow our way, our laws, that love our Constitution. Does that make them anything else? No. I could play the word game with the best of them. Just like people calling people out, wanting people to start doing stuff, people that work for more in the shadows, which I'm going to cover more in moves and counter moves. Even during war, there's operations going on in the background. It goes back to the monarchy, the court gesture. The fool. He's seen everything. He sees everything. The most important figure in that room is not the king, the queen, and the nobles. The most important person in that room is the fool, the gesture. He sees everything. He observes everything. The bards of old, they could make somebody look great. What is the bards of old today? The bards of old are the media now. The media can either make you or break you just by how they spin their tale. That's why I won't claim ever to be a citizen journalist, because I'm not. I report on stuff that I experience, watch, view, and observe. I report my experiences or my research, things I get into. Just like for the alt-right movement rally, the alt-right rally and the Boston free speech rally. There's a person on there by the name of Invictus, Augustus Invictus. He is, if you go research him, you'll find out his last name is Gillespie. He was a senator, a liberal senator, who the liberals even kicked him out because he wrote a paper on eugenics, genocide basically, how that only the intellectuals should breed and that the intellectuals are the strong. Anybody, the stupid and weak, should not have the right to breed. From what I understood of the alt-right, at least the movement that was coming up, that wasn't their ideology. But yet now I see that ideology taking root more and more. And that alt-right is becoming divided, because now we have an alt-right and an alt-light. We just like the alternative media. We had an alt media. What happened? Yep, very same thing happened. It got infiltrated and divided. Holy crap. I didn't mean to make this a 2-hour video. So, I mean, in the end, we have to decide how we're going to do things. Yes, they did. They made mainstream media propaganda legal, and now they're trying to make anything alternative illegal. Why? Because they do not want truth being told. They don't want their lies and illusions being unraveled. They don't want the common people, ties right back into the caste system, they don't want the commoners, the peasants, the serfs to realize what's going on. They don't want them to be free thinkers. Like, I'm going to take it right back to the first time it was ever used, the word heretic. Heretic, heathen, pagan. I actually have a published academia on this that I wrote up and had published on academia about the root words and origins of heathen, heretic, and pagan. It means free thinker. Started being used by the Catholic Church to oppose the farmers, the peasants, the serfs. In their terminology, that they would destroy religion because they'd question. So anybody that questioned the church, therefore, was a pagan, heathen, heretic. Be in government. And if you question the government, you become, well, we're using alt-me. You're an alt something now. You're alternative. You're questioning. So therefore, you need to be oppressed. You need to be silenced. You're now, alternative has become the new heathen, heretic, and pagan. Like I said, we always find the root origin of it. If we study and research it, we can find where it was first used in history. But then again, as my dad would tell you, what is history? His story. The story of the conquered. Conqueror, not the conquered. Yes, I very much hate having to say when he's right and quote something that he said, but he was very right on that. Because as I've stated, even if we look at how cultures and histories of cultures, they didn't write in the early times. They didn't write their history. They didn't write their stories. They passed it down from ancestor to ancestor by word of mouth. They say, what is more deadly, the sword or the pen? The pen is deadlier than the sword. It will always be. Your words are more deadly than any weapon, modern or prehistoric, that you could ever wield. Yes, like television. Good one. I never thought of that one. Television, what does it do? It tells a vision. It tells in a form of pictures. What is vision? Imagery. It tells a story through imagery. Imagery is very powerful. Most people, I don't even want to get into it, but most people don't realize what they're playing with. And I'll use the most number one saying right now, make America great again, MAGA. Do some research on that type of creation. What are you creating? You're doing something that most people condemn to begin with when you start making stuff like that. You're actually creating a sigil. You're creating a living image. when you do things like that. And they have power. Look at the movement, make just the same, make America great again. Now it's been stripped down and created into a sigil, MAGA. Now it has even more power, and it's growing, it's catching like fire. It's a symbol now. That symbol has created such a movement. In the last 10 years that I've lived around here, or I can't say last 10 because 2 years ago, for 2 years I was living in North Carolina. But 4th of July, where I live, we got a little small town. I mean, small, you blink your eye and you're past it. Had its largest 4th of July parade that I've ever seen since I've been born. And I went to it almost every year when I'm in the state, because it's just a mile up the road. And they come right to my neighbor's house, picnic for everyone and stuff. But it was the traffic from like 8 o'clock until 2 o'clock was, I live out in the country, we never see that much traffic. I mean, we had cars backed up for that town, which is really almost a ghost town. That's how much patriotism was been stirred by Make America Great Again. It stirred people, and it's really stirred people. It's a movement in itself. But unfortunately, with that movement, we still have all this division. We got politicians that don't care anything about us. They can't even get Obamacare right, which is simple. Repeal it. Be done with it. Same bird, different wings. You are right. But sadly enough, history has shown that there's only one way to make the change happen. And we all know that road. You know, some of us hold on to hope that we can avert it, change it, but we know deep down there's only one way to change that and have that change occur. And they know that too. That's why they create the division amongst everybody. Because, like I said, that's the last thing, that's the last road we want to go down right now. It's actually better not to have change right now. Because if they push it to where it has to change, we can't even find common ground with each other. We let politics divide us. We let labels divide us. We let religion divide us. Genders divide us. We are so divided that trying to find common ground anymore is... I have a better chance of beating my head off a brick wall and finding common ground with the brick wall. I mean, but then again, I still find common ground because there's an old saying, like-minded people draw like-minded people. We attract people. So, in a sense, there's still some hope that we can find ways. But I see the same ideologies playing out. Kid Rock, running for Michigan. Order out of chaos. They promote it, yes. You know, everybody's jumping on Kid Rock. Me personally, I'm not saying one way or the other, I have not heard anything political from him. I haven't heard what he wants to do. What is he about? All I know him as a rich musician that makes some good music. And some of the other things that, you see it about him. He seems patriotic in some sense. Will campaign address or anything, and everybody, because of the name, because of the label, the person, That's not the type of change I want. I want to see you out there, the listener, the viewer. You run. You know what this country needs. You know the changes that this country needs. You know how to make your communities better. Another actor, exactly. We don't need another actor. We don't need another rich person in government. We need a common person. We need more common people in government. Why? We've lived it. We've experienced what they've done. It's time for a change. It's time to implement term limits. That's how you start breaking the caste system down. You start letting the common people advance, become free. Make the changes. I mean, there's, like I said, we still say that our form of government is still just now coming out of its infancy. There's still room for change and growth in our government that can make it change and take it and change the ideology of a caste system to where anybody can, the way it was meant to be, anybody can become either a congressman, a judge, an elected official, or a president. Our Supreme Court failed us on that one when they said a corporation isn't a U.S. citizen, therefore it's not bound by our Constitution, therefore it can put as much money into an election as they want. Or what they failed to realize, but they didn't fail to realize, who's now dead, of course, he spoke out about it and said, if you allow this to happen, this is going to happen. And exactly what he said was going to happen is happening. I'll tell you what, they were right about one thing. Our elections, yes, they were manipulated by foreign entities, foreign business entities. Most of our big businesses in the United States are owned and run by foreign owners, foreign countries. So they filter their money in from those countries and influence our elections through campaign ads, through donations. Why? Because it's corporate. It's not a U.S. citizen, so the laws don't apply to them. Where me and you, we can only spend, what, $2,000 I think it is, on an election? I'd like to see where you can't, they should put it so you can't spend no money on an election. Maybe we should just do away with that. Or put an end to any corporate entity being able to election. Let the community support their electors. A selection. That's a good thought. You know, it's like I always said, there's plenty of things can be changed. You know, it's like Bernie Sanders in his little healthcare speech. Gotta love it. How he pointed out Britain, Canada, and some of these other countries. Their system's broke. I mean, let's look at what Charlie, what is it, Gard? What was his name? Well, I know Canadians. We got a lot of Canadian friends, actually, that I speak to on a regular. They get hurt, it could be a month before they can get into a doctor. Sorry. We don't need that type of... It's a great idea in theory, but in practice, it don't work. Now, if we take that theory, now we take that practice and see what's wrong with it and fix what's wrong with it, then you might be onto something. I've got an easier fix for it all. How much a person can, how much a company, the medical industry, the pharmaceutical can charge. So the most expensive surgery you'll probably ever have is brain surgery, neurosurgery. Okay. We want our poor to be able to afford that some way, some form. It's capped off at 5K. Can the poor afford that? No, but through insurance they might be able to actually afford that measure, and it's taking less from the taxpayers. You put a limit on how much they can charge, you fixed your healthcare problem. You base it off what the poor can afford, and it's the same price for everyone. Oh, but they won't make money. Bullshit, they'll make millions. Why? Because now they've got billions of people that can afford to go to the doctor for anything. So therefore, yes, you're making more money because you got what? That's right. You got more people paying for a thing, so therefore more money's coming in. You just increased your base. Simple fix, guys. Doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out how to fix our medical problems. Boy, if we did that, we wouldn't be paying out billions of dollars for insurance. It'd be one set price. Yeah, they don't want to fix nothing. You know why they don't want to fix nothing? Because, I mean, let's look at it. Do any of them on Obamacare? Nope. In fact, they're getting subsidies for not being on Obamacare. I bet you if they were on Obamacare, but then again, they're the rich. They can afford it, so it wouldn't affect them. Oh, yeah, it would affect them because of the rich. They have that mentality that they don't want to lose their money and spend a bunch of money on something. They think they're entitled. They're the nobility. Why should they have to pay? On that philosophy, why should I have to pay? Better yet, here's my philosophy on Obamacare. Why should I be fined for not having insurance? If I pay the fine, therefore, where's my insurance? I'm paying a tax on it. Where's my insurance? That's my way of looking at it. Because any other way, then it is what? Yeah, that's right. The thing you took out of the history books. Taxation without representation, the Boston Tea Party. The thing you don't want to teach your students anymore in history because it put a blemish, you say it blemishes what America is today? No. That's taxation without representation. If I'm paying a tax, then therefore I've already paid for my insurance. Where is it? Why can't I go get my tooth that's been needed pulled for the last year? Oh, that's right, I can't afford it. What used to be simple $50 or $100 for, in my case, for a wisdom tooth, is now an $800 operation. You know, and actually they're kind of lucky that Trump did what he did because, oh yeah, I would have seen them in court over that one. when they said I was going to have to owe them $645 for not having Obamacare. How can I afford Obamacare when I'm not working? Oh, but I worked the previous year. It's not their fault because I had to move from North Carolina back to Ohio. Yeah, that's right. But since I worked from December till October, come tax time, I was supposed to have Obamacare insured. I'll tell you how bad it is. My sister had to have shoulder surgery. To be able to afford it, she had to go to Brazil and have it done. Yeah. Oh, don't feel bad. I mean, I'll be 40 the end of this year. And the stuff that I've learned in just since '09 has made me sick. I mean, it's like, what happened? You know, I'm more of a person, if you ask my friends, Pam, they'll tell you I'm the silent one of the group. Me doing this, who would have thought it? That's what I say. Most of them, they wouldn't even picture that I would be doing podcasts and stuff. I'm not that person. I'm the observer, the watcher. I'm the guy that sits in the back while everybody else is partying. I'm back here, you know, drinking my beer, back against the wall, watching everything. That's me. That's the way I've always been. I've always been the quiet guy, observing, watching. You see a lot of things. My grandfather taught me that. He always told me, you need to be aware of your surroundings, all of your surroundings. There's a message in everything if you just pay attention. That homeless guy that just walked by and out of fun just started talking to himself, that could have been a message for you that only you understand. But if you're not paying attention to all of your surroundings, you'll never catch that message. And it might be something that's meant to change your life or alter a decision that you were about to make. And he taught me that when I was 10, 11. I've lived that and tried to live that every day of my life, trying to pay attention to everything. That's why I've got a diversity of friends. Different religions, different beliefs, different ideologies. Why? Because I can listen. I can find things to talk about. And I joke around, I was born out of my time. I should have been born during the Grecian period, the great philosophers, the great debaters. Why? Because I can sit there and listen. I can learn from them. I can learn sometimes things not to do. Yes, synchronicity. There's a lot of it. There's so much synchronicity in this world that people don't see it. You know. And the other thing most people don't realize, change. Change is happening all the time. Most people are just so caught up in the trending, the now. They don't catch it when it does slip in. A couple of people I follow on YouTube, they're been talking about the AIs. They talk about Canada, how Canada's using the AIs to predict crime. Well, just this year alone, I think it was back in January and February, numbers are a language. You are very right. Back in, I think it was February, in California and Arizona, I don't know how many people actually caught it, but it was talked about quite a little bit in various news. Even CNET did articles on it. Psychocs. They're using psychogs to predict crime in California and Arizona. So now people are making a big deal of the AI doing it. It's no different. What's already happened? They've been using it. In fact, I've done a research on this a long time ago. Mediums and psychics, the FBI and CIA has used for years to predict things and to solve cases. I think it was last year, they actually released the unclassified some of that information to learn. So no, the ideology of AIs predicting things isn't far-fetched. It's actually probably been happening a lot longer than what's been talked about. Because as you put it, numerics and language. The problem with all of that is a human. Our mind can almost compute like a computer if we used it. Trained it to do that. It can actually do what a computer does. But what a computer cannot do is predict our choice. Predict that Pam comes around, says something that changes my way of thinking that I'll literally change the course and put me on another probability with a whole new set of choices and outcomes just by something she said. And she wasn't meaning to. That an AI can't predict. It cannot predict what's going to cause me to alter that change. That's the danger of AIs predicting things. But what is, and that's the other thing, what is new language and numbers? It's a form of creation. We use it to create algorithms, codes for computers. We use it to create architecture. Language and numbers is a form of creation. When we make America great again, and we break it down and create it to a sigil as is MAGA, we now change the properties of it. We change the frequency of it. We're giving it more power. We're taking away the obstacles that are in it. Just another form of creation. That's what makes language so dangerous. Which make words so dangerous. Yeah, that too. Or the fact that everybody out there that's listening to this or watching this, I hate to tell you guys, I hate to be the bearer of the bad news, but you're using a black mirror. Yeah, it is. You know what the worst part is? We're just glimpsing a little bit. We're starting to see so much more. which in turn makes us start questioning everything. And we should. It is important to question everything. Question everything I say. I'm definitely not perfect. I'm far from perfect. I make mistakes. I might misquote something. My views and opinions might be wrong because it's just something I believe in. I haven't been shown something different to change my view and opinion of it. That's what's important about all these YouTubers, all these channels, no matter what they are. It's the importance of interacting with people. Another thing social caste systems, or just caste systems, don't want. They don't want society interacting. They don't want the common people interacting, because when they start interacting, they start learning to question. They start being bombarded with new ideas. And there's a growing trend coming. It's been happening. Go to Walmart. We're slowly starting to see the end of theaters. The end of go out and socialize with people in public. Why? Well, I mean, we can see it right now, but go to Walmart. When a new movie is getting ready to come out, you can buy a virtual ticket now, which allows you to watch the movie when it releases on theaters from your home. Then when it gets released on digital, HD, DVD, you also get those, but you already got to watch the movie. They don't want you going to the theater and socializing with other people. They want you to be in your home. And that's kind of flipped a lot of people, because how they introduced us with it first. When they first did it with Netflix, not so much Netflix, but Netflix was the start. They introduced YouTube now. YouTube has it. Amazon has it. You can buy the movie right there. Pre-order it before it goes to theater. So now, in a sense, they've even surpassed what we can do on satellite and cable. We now are completely having to plug into the system. By plugging into the system, they don't want us going out, interacting with our communities. Because if we start talking in our communities, we're going to start questioning. We're going to start wanting to bring change to our communities, to better our communities. Now you can start slowly seeing the wool that they've pulled over your eyes. Technology is great when it's in the right hands. When it's in the wrong hands, it becomes a form of control. It becomes just another, dare I say, a religion. A means to control the masses through fear. If you question, and I'm not knocking religion, guys, but do your history on all religions, and you'll see a common theme. It's good to be spiritual. It's good to have a connection with God. But I also remind you in the Bible where it says, when you go to prayer, pray in the closet in silence. I've watched religion divide so many people, so many families. It's not funny. In the end, I mean, none of us, other than what we put our faith into, we don't know who's right anyway until we meet our Maker, until we meet God. Then we're going to hope and pray that the religion we chose was the right one. Or we may be, That's why I try to leave religion completely off this topic on this channel. I am very spiritual. I believe in God. But I've seen what churches have done throughout history. I grew up in a Southern Baptist church. I've seen hate preached in a Southern Baptist church against Catholics. It's what drove me away from the Baptist church. Then I tried other churches and I've seen the same thing play out. It's like, how is this love? How is this love everyone? How is this turning the other cheek? So I found myself more on the lines of the way my grandfather lived his life. He believed in God. He believed in what the Bible said. But he would not go to a church. It was his personal fellowship and the way he chose to communicate. I hope he's right, because I'm finding myself following the same path. And I look at it as believing in the Constitution as black and white. It tells us that every religion has the right to believe and practice what they want. I mean, I remember quotes from the Bible. Only judge if you are spiritual. The only time you have the right to judge if you are spiritual. Means if you're being... Yeah, I mean, I agree with you there, 100%. The church, my body is the church. My body is the temple. And this is church, where 2 or 3 gather in my name. Doesn't say a building. Doesn't say huge congregation. It says just 2 or more people when we're talking, conversating. And yes, that's probably going to get me in some trouble, and I'll probably lose a bunch of more followers. But by now, you guys probably figured out I don't care about that. Like I said, it's about quantity, not quality. Oh wait, no, I actually said that wrong. It's about quality, not quantity. I'd rather have people that I can interact like I am with Pam here in chat. That's what makes this tool. This is a tool. This is what makes this tool so important. I can interact with people. We can share our ideas, our opinions, and learn from each other. You know, she might say something I completely agree with, and she might say something that actually triggers me. Well, that's a good thing, because now I'm going to question, why did that trigger me? Why is that bothering me? Now I'm going to start questioning myself and the things I've been taught. I'm going to do research. I'm going to look into it. And I'm probably going to find out she was right about something. And I had something very, very wrong that needs changed in my life. So, you know, when you guys hit the thumbs down button, good job. It means I did my job. I made you question. I triggered you. So, hey, thumbs down my videos makes me think I'm doing my job. Thumbs down is actually better than a like. Well, you see, Pam, what it is. When a person's triggered, it's a fear. It's a fear that you have something wrong. It's a fear that you might have to change something. We fear change the most. And that is a weapon to people. Some people want to trigger people, but not in a constructive way. If I trigger you, I want it to be constructive. I want you to question yourself. It doesn't matter because I know I had planted that seed already. You might not realize it now. It might be 10 years down the road, something's going to hit you like a ton of bricks. And you're going to remember that somebody said something that triggered you, and you refuse to go question it, and you find yourself at that fork in the road, or you dug yourself that deep grave, and it finally hits home. See, unfortunately, I had to learn that lesson the hard way. The very hard way. It's not easy. Why is it not easy? Because we're taught not to. Every aspect, we're taught not to question. We're taught, don't let other people change you. And that's a double-edged sword, because in part, you don't want other people to easily change you, but you want to question. And you want to get multiple sources. Like one of my friends tells me I'm far off in a left field on something, or I'm being a complete ass. I might not realize it, or don't realize I'm coming off that way. Then somebody else might tell me that. Or I'll go ask, hey, do I come off this way? And more than 3 or 4 people say that sometimes you do. Now you're aware. Now you can make the change so you don't come off that way to other people. Some people are going to do it intentionally to hope that you change to conform to their ideology and their way, which is not right. That's using psychological warfare to manipulate. Yes, I mean, it's just simple. Question everything. Learn to question everything. Because, here's the thing, guys, especially to the younger ones out here who eventually watch this video, you're young, you're still learning, you're still experiencing life. I've experienced a lot. There's a lot of things I haven't shared that I've experienced, especially my darker periods. I've hinted on them, but I've not shared them. And it's through those experiences, it's either change or go ahead and just go buy that coffin. That's how far I went down. But I had to experience things. When you experience things, you're going to change. You're going to make changes in your life that better yourself. If I have any message, it's that. Learn from your mistakes. Don't hold on to them. Learn from them so you don't repeat them. Your past is a lesson. It's not meant to be held on to. It's not meant to be used against you. Because you keep repeating them, you're not learning. You just keep making the same mistakes. Actually, I hate to quote movies, but the last Batman, the Dark Knight trilogy, had some awesome quotes, I must admit. Why do we fall down? So we can pick ourselves back up. We learn from what brought us down. When we fall, or when we go through those trials, tribulations, crucibles in life, they're meant to teach us, so we change, so we grow. When we fall, we learn from what those pitfalls that we've created. Usually we created them. Just like, guys, you're going to sit here and tell me, oh, the drugs made me do it, this and that. No, it's an excuse. You chose, therefore every choice has a consequence, whether good or bad. You're responsible for those choices. That's the lesson I had to learn the hard way. Always quick to blame everything on everybody else and everything. And the only blame was myself. I chose, therefore I had to accept the consequences of those choices and actions. It's the hardest lesson we're going to learn in life. Early. If not, it goes back to, I'll even bring it back on topic, it's how they use the caste system against us. They know, what do we fear? Change. Know that they're going to tell us not to do what they do. Do as I do. Do as I do, not as I say. Or how's that go? Do as I say, not as I do. There's lessons to be learned by watching and observing. We see how these people, I'm just going to call them what they are, the nobility, the nobles, because that's what they portray themselves to be. That's the way their mentality is, their ideology is. It is the caste system. They have not learned from history, from their ancestors, from their mistakes. The things that's brought down these great nations. And Rome, believe it or not, to this day, archaeologists and scientists and scholars do not know how they advanced and created the things they created at such a level. We cannot some of the stuff we can't even reproduce today. Much like our pyramids, we cannot reproduce today. The technology we have. These great nations and civilizations fell because of a caste system, because of nobility. Remember what I said in the beginning, what the Portuguese described the caste system, the casta, meaning pure. Much of our monarchies believed in the same thing, same ideology, pure bloodlines, pure. And it's been the downfall. Because there's many dangers the way they practice their ideology of pure. And we've seen that ideology of pure even going to such an monstrosity as Hitler. Blonde hair, blue eyes are the only race. Yeah, I mean, I can point out the caste system in form of system. Which, now that I think about it, it explains some things here. Like, I've kind of forgotten some of my history about Hitler. Yes. Yeah, what's up? Not to get off subject, but since you mentioned Luciferian, why the hell are we naming a storm Lucifer? In fact, why have we been naming storms off of Hillary, Trump? Yeah, I guess the new storm that's sweeping through Europe with the extreme heats is called Lucifer. I haven't figured that one out, so I'm just going to drop that for right now. That's for word games for later. Yeah, very strange, because I noticed that Tropical Storm Hillary, Tropical Storm Trump. now we have this storm system in Europe. They're calling Lucifer. It's like, did I miss something? I'm usually pretty good at catching things like that. No, nobody questions. That's the problem. If we'd start questioning things, boy, things would be a lot different. Because, yeah, they keep pushing. I think I'm going to keep my thoughts to myself for a second, because I can see a very dangerous course of action if I let those thoughts slip. Yes, questioning, yeah, well, might as well let it slip. Nobody is questioning. That is a problem. The real problem is when everybody starts, because they're not going to like it. Why? Here's why they're not going to like it. Because we just took their weapon away from them. We took that fear away from them. It's a fear-based thing. This is why we fear change. We fear accepting that, oh, wow, damn, we were wrong. We've been misled. We've been tricked. We've been deceived. We don't like experiencing those things. Why? Because, well, you guys know, it can be quite numbing. It leaves you feeling numb when you realize these things. It's like, how? Why, how could I even believe this? Why? Because you were living in fear. You just broke it. You broke that chain that was keeping you shackled. Now you're starting to question everything. Now you're starting to see things as for what they are. You're seeing through the illusion. And when you start doing that, they start fearing you. Fear can be changed and redirected because they fear losing control. They fear losing their precious little status. All they got is control. Yes, and that's why that's why things are the way they are now. Pam said it perfectly. Everybody's so busy with work, kids, etc. They only watch mainstream as gospel. Everybody angry and divided. Yeah, stream. I said it right, didn't I? I'm usually pretty good at reading because when it comes to spelling, oh boy. If it wasn't for spell checker and spell correct, nobody would be able to read half the stuff I type. Funny, I published and created and wrote an online magazine for almost 3 years. Needless to say, when it came to the end of the month to do final edits, yeah, we spent more time correcting my grammar, spelling, and run-on sentences. Which is why I love this tool. Actually, you know why I like this more than writing? Because I can sit here and really interact with everyone. I can get you guys involved. I'm able to learn from you as you guys learn from me. We learn by disagreeing a lot, which wish more people would come join in on the streams and interact, because I'm different in that aspect from other streamers. I actually prefer to have an audience in my chat I can interact with. I try to keep it. I'm pretty good at keeping things on subject. In case most people haven't noticed, I've been on one of my other channels. I proved that quite eloquently with a troll that decided to pop in and let's just say I turned Cotty's cheat. He wanted to supposedly he wanted to know if I could help him with an essay on Cotty's cheese. Needless to say, I would have loved to have seen that essay because I turned that cottage cheese little comment topic into the very same topic I was talking about. You know, as far as like caste systems. No, I haven't. I'll have to check that out. Before I forget that, I'm going to write that down in my notes. So when I get done here, I can go check it out. And I think that was something that a lot of people would, I'm still slowly adding channels to this, which reminds me I have to go do, since this is the beginning of the month, add to my, for those who don't know, if you go to my actual channel page here, the featured channels, every month I change them to new channels that I watch. I try to keep it, you know, a couple truthers, prepper. It's things I find interesting. I put on there. You know, I feature 7 of them every month. So definitely check them out because I listen to a lot of people that you wouldn't think I would actually listen to. It can be quite shocking, the people that I listen to. Because here's the thing. It goes back to what I said about my grandfather. There's a message in everything. You know, they might not be completely right on some of the stuff. There might be things they talk about I don't agree with, but something drew me to that channel. I was drawn to that channel for a reason. So I usually give the channel a chance. I listen to what they say. It might spur me to question some things that I wouldn't have thought about questioning. So yes, it's important just not to stick to one channel. It's, you know, it's not, don't put yourself in a box of labels. Because when you do that, you're missing out on other messages, other truths, other ideologies, things that'll make you question, think. You might, from listening to them, you might question or come up with an idea that you bring over to somebody else's channel and you mention it in their chat, and it might stir up a conversation that leads to a better understanding of, because everybody has their own information. Everybody has their view of things. And when we start interacting with each other, when we start talking to each other, bringing up different ideas, different views, we're learning from your experience as well. We're learning your story. And we're building on that. We're learning how to think outside the box, create better ideas. We'll take those things we learn from each other, we'll start talking about it in our communities. That's how we make change. That's how we change the stuff that's broken and fix them. It's by interacting. That's why I was talking about the virtual ticket thing, how they're trying to make us stay more at home instead of out socializing. They want us more together. And it goes back to what Pam said. That's why, people are working. Most families growing up, yes, 39 guys. So yeah, when I was growing up, 90s, early 90s, it was still most families. It's one parent working. Normal 40-hour week. Sometimes a little extra overtime. It's still living good. Upper middle. It's when you still had upper middle class, you know, priced. I mean, I remember 99 cents gas. Actually, I remember 89 cents gas. Back then, I was driving an 89 Camaro with a 350 and a bunch of other nice upgrades to it. I could afford it. I wouldn't dream of driving it today. I remember you could fill up your tank of gas for $10. Actually, for $10, you get a pack of cigarettes and fill up your tank. And a pop. Wow. I would have loved those days. I'd love to see days of under 99 cents or $1 even. But now your normal family, and now you have. I mean, I've covered this, and for those that don't know, every month I've been doing a video. It's part of the American deception on the American dream. We all know what the American dream was. The white picket fence, late 60s, late 50s. That was the American dream. That was the ideology of America. Come to America, you'd be able to be something. You'd be able to be rich. That was the American dream. Yeah, that dream kind of died a long time ago. The ideology's still there. It's just things have changed. Nobody's put checks and balances to keep it, so the American dream is still a reality. Now, both parents got to work. And usually in the case, one of those parents is working 2 jobs. And that's so they can just they're barely getting by, so they can just barely put food on the table at the end of the week after they pay the bills, the rent, the gas. Buy very little groceries. I mean, I remember when you used to go to the grocery store, if you spent $100 on groceries, I mean, you pretty much stocked for the month. Now you spend $100 in groceries, you might have 20 items in your cart. Yes, they make it harder. Not only do they make it harder, they've taken it to where now your kids, and this is why we have the alpha-beta conversation going around right now. That's why we got kids not being taught their histories and our parents don't know. Because now the kids' role models, which their first role models as they're growing up, is their parents, their mom, their dad. Well, now that's why we have more beta males than we have alphas, because, well, the dads just don't got time to teach their kids how to work on cars when he's working 60 hours a week, maybe a second part-time job on top of that. So the males have lost their role model in the home. Tired by the end of the day when they get off work, they fix unhealthy dinner. Why? Well, they can't afford really to buy vegetables and healthy food, and you're just so tired. Sometimes it's easier just to order takeout. We're so tired we can't pay attention. Well, I can't say we because I don't have kids. But you know what I mean. You're so tired you don't have a chance to really pay attention to what they're learning in school, what they're being taught. iPad is the babysitter. iPad, TV, computers now are the babysitter. Cell phones. Yes. And we're not, social media is now the role model. Ouch. When I say social media, you know what I mean. Facebook, Twitter, sites that are out there. It becomes the role model for our kids instead of the human. Teaching them how to work on a car so you don't have to take it to a garage and spend money you don't have. How to grow gardens. How to fix lawnmowers. How to cook. I was amazed at how many younger kids didn't know how to cook. I mean, growing up, I didn't only know how to build things, construction, work on cars, work on small engines, and various other things. Of course, I'm a jack of all trades, so it don't really matter. I know everything when it comes to, okay, dabbled, had my hands in a little bit of everything, and learned a little bit of everything, which was probably a bad thing, honestly. Just saying to all you males out there, probably a bad thing you learned how to cook, because that's why most of us we become bachelors for so long. We don't know how to cook. We don't. Nah, it probably was not a good idea. But yet, same token, a lot of women now don't know how to cook. That's the part that amazed me. I mean, even when I was growing up, there was still a small percentage of men that knew how to cook. That could actually, cook. Anybody can throw something in a microwave. Now, for the longest, my dad couldn't even cook in the microwave right, but even he learned how. If we can sit back here and actually start talking about these things, we can start making some changes. It's where I disagree with some people out there. I'm not going to name names. Try not to do that on this channel. Somebody that I follow and watch their videos and stuff, interact with occasionally. That's why they're all over the map on their topics. They're all over their map on what they see when it comes to what changes need to happen. Instead of sitting here talking about things like this, finding the problems, what's causing these problems, they want to take it on a completely, dare I say it, Hitler-esque ideology, which seems to be the common theme here late, which is amazing me, which why I did 2 videos on diversity, because somebody triggered me. And it took me about a week to figure out what actually caused the trigger. Because up until this point, I would have never guessed it, that there were people, like I stated on Augustus Invictus, thinking of, I mean, hello, we all know our history, we know the Holocaust. Why would they ever want to repeat something like that? Yeah, I've been working on that one. Bad language everywhere, TV, songs, etc. So, yeah. And I mean, I really can't say anything because I can be bad at that. And that's something I try to work with. It's like when I'm not on cam, but even when I'm on do videos and have the cam on, I don't try not to smoke, not even with the e-vape on the camera. which normally would never have bothered me. But then I realized it was a part of what triggered me. Yes, around kids. It's something I've actually been learning because, when I was living in North Carolina, I was staying with a friend, like a brother to me, living with them, and he's got 2 kids. Well, we had rules. Smoking in the main sections of the house. Basically, the only places you could smoke was outside, or in the room I was sleeping in, or his room. No place else was allowed to smoke, and we tried mostly if we wanted to smoke a cigarette outside. So, 'cause you didn't want them, one, didn't want to surround them, didn't want them seeing bad habits. Then you quickly learn about language. Did not want to be the one that said the F word and heard one of them repeat it. I'm the first person to admit I am not PC. But, and I am, vocabulary-wise, well, actually, I've got a very high vocabulary, which will amaze some people considering the sailor language of me. I guess when I first started the stream, it didn't bother me, I didn't care, and I just went at it. More emotion-based, fueled it, and didn't sit back and think about it. Here of late, I've been, yes, it's me. I'm about that, respect and manners. I've always been taught to respect my elders, show respect everywhere. I mean, a lot of people, even, they know it. People that live up north, we lack manners. When I say manners, and we lack respect and manners when it comes to our vocabulary. When you go down south, you'll know what I mean. It's ma'am, sir. I mean, things here, if we would say, hun, babe, we'd get smacked. I still catch myself going to the checkout and say, well, you have a good day, ma'am. Just because I was in South Carolina for 2 years, or North Carolina, my bad, for 2 years, and it's that Southern hospitality. You come up north, you don't hear people say, ma'am, sir. And it's something that I've been trying to keep in my vocabulary, keep it, because it is respectful. And, I blame that a lot on diversity. They're now trying to say we can't say this because, it'll offend somebody. How's being respectful offending somebody? I watched somebody's chat. I could tell it was some chick. I don't remember which chat it was or what video it was, but they were talking. They were talking proper English, using proper nouns, proper grammar, and it's tripping people out. Okay. Yeah. And you're probably right. It's probably not an area thing. Because well, if you was born from Philly, that's more of a city type area, so that might be wrong. It's just the areas we find ourselves in, I guess. Because like around here, I'll tell you what, if I broke down here in Ohio, I'm screwed. I better have a cell phone. Oh, wait, I don't have a cell phone. Not active. So I would be screwed. If I'd break down in North Carolina, I wouldn't even be able to have time to reach for my cell phone before somebody was stopping and asking if I needed help. It don't happen here anymore. Or, I hated driving down, going back to the house. I lived up in the Appalachians. Actually, I lived about a mile from the Stony Fork, or the Parkway, which was basically about 3 miles from the Continental Divide. So coming down the mountain and driving through the windy mountains, everybody you pass, wave. You're winding down through the mountain, literally. It's like, oh yeah, you want to wave, but at the same time, till you drive the roads enough, you're scared to take your hand off the wheel because you don't want to go over in the berm. Berm bad. In fact, you learn to drive closer to the yellow, where I grew up here in Ohio, Michigan, Indiana, where we hug the white. You don't hug the white in the mountains. Yeah. Every area is different. That's something I learned. That's something I do actually tell people. Get out. Be adventurous. Visit places. Go places. Which I know it's hard. They make it so we can't. Because we got to work. We got to work so hard to just barely get by. We can't even save to take a vacation anymore, really. It sucks. You start learning new things. Plus, I also tell people, hey, go for a walk. Go out. Find some woods near your area. And go for a hike in the woods. Trust me, you're going to feel much better. Because, one, don't take your cell phones with you. Don't take your iPads. Don't take nothing electronic with you. You can take a camera. That's cool. Don't take your phones. Why? Get away from the Wi-Fi signals. Get away from the stuff that you're being bombarded. I've talked about this in other videos. Let me see here. I might not have on this channel. I think I have. I'm not sure. But we're constantly bombarded with this Wi-Fi, these signals. A lot of people, I've heard people talk about, they say they're young people that haven't worked around heavy machinery, especially saying they're constantly hearing it ringing in their ears. You know what that's from? All these Wi-Fi cell towers and stuff, all the signals that we're being bombarded with, these frequencies. That's what's causing everybody to have that annoying ringing in their ears. You'll find once you get out away from it, it's kind of what I loved where I was living. Yeah, 5G is going to be real nuts. $1984? Yep. I mean, it's 1984. I mean, that's actually, if you read 1984 and you think about caste system, you can see it even in 1984. You can see the frameworks and stuff of the caste system. That's funny. I never thought actually, it just dawned on me about that one. Never thought I'd be able to relate a book to a caste system. That it's kind of popular amongst people now again. I think it's what shocks people that I'm actually talking about a caste system. And the worst part is the reason I'm talking about it because I've heard people talk about it here late, but they only talk about the Hindu version of it, which I must admit slipped my knowledge completely. I've forgotten my history about that because, like I said, I'm more familiar with the Egyptian form of caste system, which most people say is where all caste systems got their roots from, was from the Egyptian caste system. Which could be wrong now because the Hindu, they say it is the Otis. I don't know. Yes. Speaking of which, since I seem to be way too notorious for not being able to do an hour video, I am going to actually wrap this video up since we're going on 3 hours. And I had no intentions of doing that. And trust me, I'm very bad at it because one of my other channels, I've been known to do 8-hour long live streams and not realize it. I try to keep videos on this channel at least an hour, which I feel miserably at most of the time. But that's the beauty of my way of thinking. It's the beautiful thing of YouTube. Full screen, you can click watch later. And you can pick right back up where you left off. Actually, it'll back it up to like 2 or 5 minutes. So you can always watch this. And like I said, Drew Lima. Drew Lima's one. The other one is more, I got another one, but that's more, yeah, I'll link the other channel in my description. That last one I put in chat, that doesn't go over well with people. But on that channel, that last one I put on there, that's where I talk about black mirrors, words, and how they've been used against us. I try to keep that one far separate from this channel. Drew, that one covers a little bit of everything, actually. I haven't done much lately on Drew Lima. I save that for now pretty much, Ramblings of the Chaotic Mind. Just me venting and ranting on subjects. But I've got a couple of videos on there. I did stuff on Wikipedia. And like I said, I've published a few things on academia. So even then we were told from other scholars and stuff on academia never to use Wikipedia as a source. Not credible. Most of it. So I ended up doing it. It was actually Be Rich. I did something. He was talking about something. I looked into it, tried to get some things changed or to take it down. More of an investigation type thing, and yeah, it didn't go over too well with YouTube. But yeah, so most of that stuff's on Drew Lima. I have brought it over here. You know, I love Be Rich. I was hoping I'd get a notification here before long, because I know on Twitter he said something about doing a podcast tonight with, who was it? I can't remember the lady's name he was going to have on. But then I seen earlier today that he had posted that he's going to take the kids to a movie, so I don't know. I kind of miss Be Rich not being around, because I loved his podcast. You know, he's gotten set up on some things, I know. But iCitizen News and those guys, I might not agree with everything some of them say, but as far as Be Rich goes, dude, check them out. They report good stuff, factual stuff. Pretty much, well, if it ain't racing, that'll be football now. Other than that, the TV don't come on. I'm getting ready to do another video on cryptocurrency too. Yeah, I wish Eric would do some more stuff. I like his tech talk. Same way as Whom It May Be. I really enjoyed Eric's tech talk though. But he's been, I guess, from what I've kind of gathered, he's been working. Yeah, they're all taking a break, it seems, except for Dabu. But I'm getting ready to do another video on cryptocurrency, and I'm actually going to, I hate to say it, but I came across another stream, and they were talking about the blockchain and cryptocurrency. And they were talking about EOS. Basically, it was one of the creators and designers of Steemit, or Steam. He started another one. He left Steam and created EOS. But he brought up something. I don't know if Dabu's aware of it or not. That it's pointless for anybody here in the United States to even think about cryptocurrency because of the federal government. It won't recognize it. Basically, we have to buy secondhand. And the creator flat out tells the American people this. Yeah, I'm learning. And I've kind of been enjoying some of the stuff Dabu's been saying, but I also found something that he's saying, he's kind of to me, he's starting to mislead people. We have to buy secondhand. We can't buy right into, yeah, same here. Especially when he starts talking about rising up and stuff. That's not what we need right now. But I don't know if just thinking he just don't know about it. But you can only buy secondhand, so therefore you can never become rich on the cryptocurrency here in the United States. Because you have to buy secondhand. You can't buy right into the company. And this was directly from the guy that created EOS. And EOS, if he gets it off and launches it right, will be the fastest interchange. Basically, they'll be able to transfer funds faster than anything out there right now. But he just flat out told the American people, until he changes the laws and recognize cryptocurrency, you'll never make a fortune. You'll never become millionaires off cryptocurrency in the United States because it's an illegal currency, which I thought was interesting. to actually hear it said that way. I'm still learning on it, so I'm not saying anybody's wrong. I just want to make people aware of that. Like I said, I'm going to do another video on that later. I'll probably bring one of my friends on. He's more into the tech side of things and cryptocurrency. I mean, I am to a certain extent. I've created my own platforms and stuff, but cryptocurrency, blockchains, that's a new area. Not really. I've learned a few things late where I can relate it to something else. And that's the other thing, guys. When you hear things, find stuff that you can relate it to. Sometimes it's good to play word games with it or hear other ideas because you might find something you can relate it to. That's my thought and philosophy on that. Anything that's on computer can be, well, they say it can never be. Once it's on the net, it can never be taken off the net. So they say. But yes, if it's on computer, it's on a disk, EMP happens, it's gone. You have no currency. So yeah, I'm much more, but we're being programmed to accept cryptocurrency. In fact, we're playing cryptocurrency now, and we don't realize it. That new chip that they put in everything, being able to pay everything from your cell phone or off your credit card, it's another form of crypto. It's just not, it's still called dollars. Me personally, I look at it this way. The only real currency out there right now is your skills, or physical property like gems, gold, silver. But your skills has always and will always be a form of currency. Your value is in your knowledge, your trade, your skills. What can you do? Can you grow a garden? Can you fix engines? Can you fix electronics? That's a skill. That has value. Real value. So I'm not big on the cryptocurrency thing because you put it right. Pam said, that scares me about being on a computer. I need something in my hand, I think, because it can be erased. It can be hacked. It can be taken. Just like nobody reported on the fact that one of the exchanges got hacked. And it was through an old school method, phishing. Not email, by phone. They got scammed by phone, and they got access to people's stuff, and they have to pay a bunch of people. And that's the other thing that bothers me. All this cryptocurrency, all these exchanges are all overseas. Most of them is in South Korea, China. So that should bother everyone. What really bothers me is now that banks are starting to buy into it. And just to bring it back on topic, what is a bank? It's another form of caste system. And for those that want to argue on that one, do your research in banks. Research the big banks. Research how they are run, who controls the money. It ain't the everyday citizen, that's for sure. But, Pam, thank you for joining. I am going to wrap this up, since I am now pushing 3.5 hours on this video. Yep. Honestly, for those that don't know, 90% of I'm going to say 95% of Americans, just not Americans, 90% of the world does not carry more than $20 in their pocket anymore. Most people use a debit card, which is nothing more than another form of credit card, or most people don't even go to the ATMs anymore and withdraw money. I've got a problem with that. It's teaching you to not hold real cash, something that's physical. It's teaching you to devalue a form of physical property. You know, for when I travel, I try to keep as much cash as I can, but I also get one of those prepaid debit cards and put money on the debit card. I don't even keep money in the bank anymore. No, that way I know I'll just go to Walmart, load what I think I'm going to need for the trip for emergency. That way, I can just put the card in the gas station, fill up the tank, and not have to get into the cash. But other than that, I don't put no more than what is needed. Usually I kept that for paying internet bills like Netflix or World of Warcraft. And now I'm not even paying for any of that stuff, so I don't have no need for it unless I travel. And I still prefer have more cash than is actually on the debit card because it can be scanned. It can be used. So I'm all about physical things that I can have, or skills that I can, hey, can I trade something? A bartering system. These things are important. They're skills and lessons that shouldn't be lost, and they're slowly trying to force people away from them. But yeah, I'm going to wrap this up. Thank you, Pam, for joining tonight. I enjoyed our conversation. Enjoyed conversating with you. I'll put in the description for you when I send this. But guys, if you liked the video, I know it's 3.5 hours long. Sorry. Should be used to it by now. Hit the like button. Hey, you didn't like it, hit the dislike button. Don't bother me. And if you haven't subscribed, subscribe. If not, hey, fine. Just know that these videos will always be here. And I will see you guys on the next video, which will probably be tomorrow. I think we've got something planned for tomorrow, so I will see you guys next time.